I have walked into the river where the water was calling me, bowed my head and gone down under, there to see what I could see. And when I rose up from the river, put my feet upon the sand, I can see there was a changing, for I am a different man. Won't you join me at the river where the water is calling me? Bow your head and go down under, there to see what we can see. And when you rise up from the river, put your feet upon the sand. You can tell there's been a changing. You can feel it. Yes, you can. When I leave the blessed river, walk to the city once again, where the air is hot and stifling, and the people cry for rain. I can feel the river's coolness on my body and in my hair, so I'll sing the invitation to the river everywhere. Come, your friends, and come, your neighbors, where the water was calling me. Bow your heads and go down under, there to see what we can see. And when we leave the blessed river, back to the city once again, we will be the river's presence. We will be like cooling rain. Oh my goodness, I do love the imagery of the river. It has so many, many, many meanings. When you stand in the river and you feel the water around you, it's this wonderful sense of flowing and movement and current. And when you dive into the water and go deep down under, then there's this silence, this waiting, this expectation. How long can you hold your breath? And therapy is kind of like going to the river. And our guest today is Beverly Oxley, who is a psychologist and therapist and director and owner of a wonderful center for psychological resources called Wellspring. You'll see her and hear her in a little bit. But I want to sing some songs, sing some songs about therapy. Songs about therapy. And this one actually comes from a project I did several years ago with a minister who was writing a thesis. Check this out. Writing a thesis on what are the factors that make pastors want to stay in a pastorate for a long time? What are the factors that increase longevity in the pastorate? And one of the things he discovered when he did his polling of, I think it was 100 or 200 pastors. He did his polling, and one of the things he discovered is that pastors who tend to stay for a long time have someone they can talk to. Like a really, really good friend, or like a therapist. Somebody who knows you in and out. Somebody who knows your secrets. Somebody with whom you don't have to hide anymore. And so this song is called, Who's Gonna Be There? Who's gonna be there on that cold Monday morning when you don't think you have the strength to walk right out that door? Who's gonna be there on that Thursday afternoon when you don't have the guts to face it anymore? Who's gonna be there when your sense of entitlement makes you think that you deserve all the privileges you get? Who's gonna be there when the rain just won't stop falling and your premonition tells you you ain't seen nothing yet? Here we go. Don't go it alone. Walking off the cliff if you're walking by yourself. Don't go it alone. You need the wisdom and the honesty of somebody else. Tell someone your secret. Don't let it fester, it will just do you harm. Put out the fire before we have to sound an alarm. You need some help to get those demons disarmed. You need some help to keep those demons disarmed. Who's gonna be there when you're sitting in your office and you're fantasizing a liaison with someone you just seen? Who's gonna be there when no matter how hard you try, everybody tells you you're just a drama queen? Who's gonna be there when every single day you work so hard and cannot find a way to make it turn out right? Who's gonna be there when that habit you thought you broke comes back to haunt you in the middle of the night? Don't go it alone. Walking off the cliff if you're walking by yourself. Don't go it alone. You need the wisdom and the honesty of somebody else. Tell someone your secret. Don't let it fester, it will just do you harm. Put out the fire before we have to sound an alarm. You need some help to keep those demons disarmed. You need some help to keep those demons disarmed. Shadows and silence are around you everywhere. Keep your position. Tell them what they want to hear. If they really knew you, you're afraid you'd be undone. It's so much harder when you can't talk to anyone. Go it alone. You're walking off the cliff if you're walking on your own. Don't go it alone. You need the wisdom and the honesty of somebody else. Tell someone your secret. Don't let it haunt you, it will just do you harm. You put out the fire before we have to sound an alarm. You need somebody's help to keep those demons disarmed. I can't tell you how many times I have been in places where people said if I had somebody to talk to, if I just have anybody. Well, that needs to change. One more song before I introduce our guest. Beverly Oxley is not only a licensed psychologist and the director of Wellsprings, which is a counseling center for psychological resources, but she is also a registered play therapist. And you don't hear a lot about play therapy these days, so I want to ask her some about. But I thought it'd be kind of fun to introduce her with a play song, which goes something like this, called Come Down to the Park. There's a little place that you can sing, a little thing that goes na 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 na. You can sing it if you want to. Na 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 na. That'll come up later. We start like this. Well, at 3 o'clock on Wednesday, his daughter comes upstairs. Turn off your computer, Dad, and let's go down to the park by the wishing well. Wishing well. He was all so tired of writing, and the words were dry and brittle. And he wished for all the world he could be standing in the shoes of someone else. A block away they heard it, those tiny little voices, all liquid and alive like flowers bursting with the joy of summer rain. He knew he would look silly, but she would not be resisted. So clumsily at first they skipped the distance. He was 5 years old again. Kill the phone, leave it home. Tell them if they want me they can come down to the park. It's just around the block. There's no school today. We won't mind the clock. We can play all day. Stay until it's dark. Grab a bag of chips and put some old clothes on and come down to the park. Here's your turn. Ready now? Na 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 na. Sing it again, sing it again. Na 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 na. One more time. Na 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 na. At 3 o'clock on Wednesday, they pick up kids from school, drop Jimmy off at tennis, and they're rushing to get Laurie to ballet. By the time the dance is through, she's slightly late for violin, and Jimmy rushes back to school for a 5 o'clock rehearsal of the play. It's a cell phone conversation about who's going to pick up who. And don't forget, don't be late for media class, and don't forget, you got soccer and debate. Don't get home till after 9. Homework is not done, and they're hungry and they're tired, and this life is not quite so great. Kill the phone, leave it home, tell them if they want me they can come down to the park. It's just around the block. There's no school today. We won't mind the clock. We can stay all day. Play until it's dark. Grab a bag of chips and put some old clothes on and come down to the park. Help me now, ready? Na 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 na. Sing it again, sing it again. Na 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 na. One more time. Na 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 na. 5 a.m. on Friday at the airline's ticket counter. It's another trip across the country. That's the way he gets to pay his bills. And someone says that travel isn't like it used to be. And they nod their heads, and then they realize they're standing there, and they guess they always will. And he wonders what they're thinking as they stand there sleepy-eyed and blurry, watching luggage being scanned by the TSA. And he wonders if they're thinking exactly what he's thinking. Maybe it's time, jump out of line, get in the car and go find a park today. Come down to the park, just around the block. There's no school today. We won't mind the clock. We can stay all day. Play until it's dark. Grab a bag of chips and put some old clothes on. Grab a bag of chips and put some old clothes on. Grab a bag of chips and put some old clothes on. Come down to the... Your turn. Here we go. Sing it again. Here we go. Have another hot dog. Wear an old t-shirt. Don't tell anybody. Just our secret. And one more na 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 na. So, I introduce to you licensed psychologist, director and owner of Wellspring, and registered play therapist, coming to you all the way from Georgia, the wonderful Beverly Oxley. Hello, Beverly.
Hello, Ken. How are you?
How are you?
You made me laugh on that last song. I loved it.
Well, I figured since we're going to talk about play some anyway, I figured that would be a good intro. So, you and I have quite a history together,
We do. We
much
do.
of which I didn't know actually while it was going on. You know, I was clueless as to so some of that I've just come to know fairly recently.
Yes.
So,
I
tell me,
actually met you in 1984.
so tell me about Wellspring and how that all came about and how that connected to something that we were someplace we were together.
Well, in 1984, you came to Emmanuel College in Franklin Springs, Georgia, a tiny little unmapped spot in Northeast Georgia. And I attended your concert on that Saturday night and Sunday morning. And I tell you, made quite an impression on the entire community. But there were some things that happened in me that weekend that were life changing. I didn't know that at the time, but later on, I realized that. On that Saturday night, you sang a song about dancing in the desert. And at the time, I was doing anything but dancing in the desert. If anything, I was crawling on my belly, trying to find an oasis in the desert. I was going through a big adjustment. My husband and I had moved from Oklahoma City 2 years previous to that. And I'd left my home, my job, my church, and my entire family. And we moved 1,000 miles away. And I felt like I gave up a beautiful Lamborghini for a rusted Volkswagen van. And it was not a good trade. And I was not happy. And I was in a pretty bad place emotionally and probably spiritually too. So when you came that Saturday night and heard that song, I I wept through the whole thing. It was quite embarrassing. I just used one Kleenex after another, and pretty soon I had a snowstorm of Kleenex around my feet. I could not stop crying. And then the next morning, you had that was the second part of the concert. I I listened just intently to a song that you sang, and I didn't know at the time, but there were some seeds planted in my heart that morning. And I want to read just a few words from that song. And it was about Franklin Springs, this tiny little unmapped place. And you said, I had this vision. Here's what I see. I see a town, and all around the town, I see fountains, beautiful fountains. I see fountains rising into the air, and the spray from the fountains makes everything bright. I see wells bubbling up from the ground, springs of water shooting high into the sky. Everyone who is thirsty, come to the springs without money, without pride. The people there are the gentlest folks you know, loving folks. They will take you in and love you deep. They are learning how to live and learning how to love. I see people coming from Atlanta, Savannah, Florida, Chicago, and New York to see the miracle of Franklin Springs. This is my vision. This is my dream. And that Sunday morning, there were some seeds planted in me, and I knew there was going to be some kind of a ministry for me in Franklin Springs. It gave me hope that, if I stayed there long enough, that something would happen. It was 25 years later before those seeds put went into the soil and sprang up into a plant, and that became Wellspring Psychological Resources.
Oh my.
It was not until 2 years after that, though, like 2 years after I opened up Wellsprings, that a friend of mine said, "This is a brand new thing for you. You've never done anything like this before, and it's a new ministry in this whole Northeast Georgia quadrant. There's no other counseling center around here like this." And when she used those words, new and something newly planted, it brought back a memory. So I asked my husband, if he remembered Ken Medema and that weekend. He said, "Oh yeah, I've got a CD." So we pulled it out and I listened to it, and oh my gosh, I realized that God had planted those seeds. Even the name of the counseling center, where it said, "I see wells bubbling up from the ground, springs of water." And I had named this place Wellsprings. So all of that really came into clear focus during this pandemic. And I wrote a book called Dancing in the Desert. I stole the name of your song, Ken. I stole it. And it's a memoir. It's about my life, how a kid from California got to Oklahoma and then moved on to Georgia, and how at age 49, I went back to school to do a PhD, not knowing what God had in store for me at that time. But he had Wellsprings in mind to serve this community in the way that they need to be served. There are so many hurting people here, and without any kind of help, they would be languishing. And I know many people would have died had we not been here.
Oh man, what a story. 25 years. Such a long time to wait. 25 years. Just on time, not too early or too late. 25 years. Preparing for this dance. Preparing to take this risk. Preparing to take this chance. So here we are, a well springing up from solid ground. So here we are, pass the word to everyone around. So here we are, for the hopeless, for the dying who languish. Come, ye disconsolate, where'er ye languish, 'cause here we are, a wellspring of your own. So
Beautiful.
now you have an entire group of counselors and
Mhm.
people who are ready to help. You have therapies. How many people do you have on the staff?
We have 12 therapists and psychologists on staff.
Oh my
Some of
word.
them are part-time, but we have 12.
Wow.
And we could use 3 more. So if there's anybody in your audience that's interested in coming to work at Wellsprings, I've got openings for you. Might as
So,
well recruit a little bit here.
one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot, and obviously you have, is what has happened to mental health in our country as a result of the pandemic. I know we hear so many things on the news, items about suicides, about teenagers who feel like they have no hope, they have no life. We hear so many things about the mental health crisis, and I wanted to hear from somebody who's boots on the ground. What's going on? What do you see? What do you hear around you?
Well, I knew you were going to ask that question. So I wrote a little allegory that kind of paints a picture for the audience, and I think it might be helpful. So let me just read this
Yeah,
to you,
yeah,
if you
yeah.
don't mind. So let's just say that there are 12 of you and your family who are taking a cruise on the Caribbean. There are two grandparents, a son, a daughter, along with their spouses, and six grandkids. You're cruising around in the Gulf of Mexico when an unexpected Hurricane 5 comes up
Oh,
out of nowhere. The ship starts rolling from side to side, and people are grabbing hold of anything solid they can grab onto. Grandpa gets swept overboard along with a few other passengers. One of the teenage grandsons in your family is terrorized when he sees his grandpa go overboard. This grandson has a history of mental illness, and a few days later, he jumps overboard to be with his grandpa.
oh,
So now two of your closest family members are lost at sea. Everyone on board is in shock and in survival mode. But before you know it, another hurricane comes along, killing more passengers and crewmen. And before you can even recover from this hurricane, a tropical storm comes along,
oh,
taking more lives. The captain is doing his best to get you back to land, but prevailing winds just keep pushing the ship away from the shoreline. The medical staff on board is mentally and physically exhausted, but then a mental health crisis breaks out. There are psychotic breakdowns, panic attacks, people going into major depression. Suicides are rising. Some are using drugs and alcohol to numb themselves. Then there's another group of people who seem calm and collected, but they are clearly languishing. They look like the walking dead. There's no sparkle in their eyes, no laughter, no joviality, no playfulness. And it's not just the elderly and the adults that are lifeless and joyless, it's the kids as well. The cacophony of anger and anguish is almost deafening. When will this nightmare end? When will life be normal and predictable again? About this time, you notice a few people on board who are not distraught, not languishing, but actually seeming to be flourishing. They stand out in the crowd like a bright yellow balloon against a gray sky. This handful of yellow balloon people are cheering the medical staff for saving lives. They are singing happy birthday to a 6-year-old. They are volunteering to help anyone in need. They greet people with a genuine smile and a cheery hello. Hang in there. We're going to get through this together. Trust us. We can do this. They invite people to have dinner together. They play games together. These people are dancing during this most god-awful experience. They seem to know that their purpose on board this cruise ship is to connect with other people in meaningful ways. Their optimism is contagious, and others begin to feel lighter and more hopeful that they will survive this catastrophe. And I see this as a picture of what Americans have been through this last 2 years. We know from our statistics that almost a million Americans have died. 78 million have been infected with the COVID. And almost everyone has lost one or more family members or close friends. We lost a provider here at Wellsprings.
mm, mm.
And some of them have those long COVID symptoms that just keep going on and on and on. just recently, we're getting good news that the number of deaths and infections are going down, but the mental health crisis is going up and up and up. It's almost like a tsunami of mental health crisis, which is understandable because it seems to follow a catastrophe like this. It doesn't come at the front end, but it does come in the middle or toward the end, and it stays with us a long time.
How do you dance when the world is falling apart? How do you dance when everyone's losing heart? How do you dance when your beloved fell overboard into the sea? How do you dance? How do you sing? How do you smile? How do you go on from here? Feels like the ship is sinking. Feels like the water's coming in. Rocking from side to side. What can you do? How do you begin? Doesn't it seem foolish to dance in the dragon's jaws? Doesn't it seem foolish? Doesn't it seem like you really don't know the cause? Is it hopelessly naive to dance and smile and sing? Is it hopelessly naive to try to do these things? Is it hopelessly naive to pretend you're okay? Is it hopelessly naive to be dancing in this way? So I ask you, how do you dance when the ship is coming apart? How do you dance when I am losing heart? God, I wish I could dance. I wish I could sing. I wish I could not be so destroyed by it all. So I want you to tell me how I can dance. There's a question for you.
Yeah.
So tell me, how do these people do it? These yellow balloon people. What makes the difference?
I think I am one of those yellow balloon people. And it's not that I've had a rosy life. If you read my memoir, I lost my father at age 12 and my mother at age 21. I lost a brother. I've had a lot of losses in my life. And even in this past year, September, my younger daughter was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. And in October, a month later, my older daughter was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. And I think I have a right to not feel like dancing. But I have learned that when we live in the moment, live for today, live for the gift that God gives us each day, then we can find those joys in the moment. I remember when I was going to fly out to see my younger daughter in Oregon, she says, "Mom, I don't want you to come out here moping around. I don't need anyone moping around." And I said, well, can I come and mop around? Can I mop your floor? She said, yes, you can mop, but no moping because I don't need that. And I went out there, and there were some times we cried together, but for the
Yeah.
most part, we found joys in the little things of that day. And if we truly can live in the present moment, like Jesus admonishes us, do not worry about tomorrow. Do not do that. Live for today. I have the gift. You have the gift of life for today. Enjoy that moment, those things that come along today, and enjoy the people that are there. Be a part of um, the solution of life, and don't be a part of the problems of life.
So, what in the world does therapy have to do with all this? I mean, I want a lot of our audience here, people who've not been in therapy, we know so precious little about therapy and what happens. We have lots of images about what therapy is and isn't, but you talk about changing of perspective. You talk about changing of attitudes,
Mhm,
and I want to know if I were to come to therapy,
mhm.
how would how would you begin to help me make those changes?
Well, it's my responsibility as a therapist to enter your world, Ken. So if you were to come to see me, um, I would be the one to greet you in the waiting room. I would call you by name. I would introduce myself. And then as we walk down the hall, I would make some chit chat, just some conversation
Hmm.
to help put you at ease. That's my job. I want you to feel very comfortable with me. And then I would bring you into my office, and I would, first of all, tell you about the HIPAA guidelines, and that everything that you share with me is confidential. Nothing goes out of this office except for possible if you're hurting yourself or someone else is
Hmm.
hurting you and so forth.
Yeah, you
Those
have to
are
report
those are
that.
guidelines, right?
Yep.
But then I ask you to tell me your story. I want to know why you're here. What brought you into therapy today? What gave you the courage to come in to talk to me today? I want to hear your story. And I listen actively to your story. I listen to the words you use. I'm listening to what you tell me, what you don't tell me. It's like I'm putting a jigsaw puzzle together in my head, getting a picture of Ken Medema, and 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 I'm responding at times with that, asking pertinent questions, but I'm listening and I'm respecting what you're saying, and I'm using your language because I want to enter your world. I want to understand your world. And once a person feels understood, I think they can begin to let down their guard and really share what's going on in the gut of their
Yeah.
feeling, their
Yeah.
heart.
So how much of what you do is just you listen to me, you try to you learn my story, you try to get to know me.
Mhm.
Then do we get to the point where you're going to make some suggestions to me? This the old joke that we tossed around in college when I was taking a course in Rogerian therapy was, so I come to you and I say, well, I'm feeling really bad. Oh, you're feeling really bad. Yeah, I think I'll kill myself. You think you'll kill yourself? I'm going to jump out the window. You're going to jump out the window. I mean, there's that old thing, and I know therapy is not like that. But I want to know what's the balance between listening to me and then come to the point where you say, okay, I have some things I need to say to you.
Well, I'm not one of those, "Uh-huh, mhm, oh, mhm, yeah, okay, well, whatever you think." I am not one of those. I don't think people need that kind of thing. Um, I'm very direct, and, I try to be very respectful when I'm talking to them, but, I just say, "Do you realize that what you're husband is doing to you is abusive? Are you
Uh,
aware of that? Does that
mhm, mhm.
do you understand what's going on here? Or, um, you've got a teenage son who is, doing wild and crazy things. What kind of guidelines do you need to instill for him
Mhm,
for his
mhm,
sake?
mhm.
How can I work with you on that? How can I, help you formulate what you need to do? So I try to be an active participant, and sometimes it's just very direct. Look, if you keep on doing this, do you know where you're going? Look at where you're headed here.
So your deal is if you can earn my trust,
Mhm.
and if we come to the point where you think you have my trust, then you can say things to me directly from your perspective as somebody who knows me, from your psychological insight. You can say things to me directly that you believe will be of help.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. And in fact, after the very first session I have with them, before we go further, I ask them, "Do you feel like I'm a person that you can trust and that you want to work with? Because I want to work with you, but you've got to be
Yeah,
invested in this
yeah.
too."
There was an interesting article in the Atlantic, the most recent Atlantic, and they were talking about mental health. And one of the things they were talking about is um, people who are neurotic. And one of the things they said, interestingly enough, was that a month of therapy can reduce neuroticism by about half of what an entire lifetime could do. 1 month of therapy.
Wow.
And I think if one of my goals to bring you into our program is to say to people, you don't need to be embarrassed to go to therapy. And there are possibilities here. I mean, sometimes I know therapy is very expensive, right? But there are possibilities. I want you to talk to me just a little bit about that before we if I'm looking for therapy, how do
Mhm.
I begin that process?
Well, I can tell you right now, most counseling centers are overloaded. Um, we have more than 200 people on our waiting list, and I think that's probably true for most. But I would just ask around in the community, who's good? What do you know about this counseling center? Or have you heard of this therapist? Word of
Yeah.
mouth is probably one of the best ways to find a good therapist. But, I think that stigma that used to be there about going to therapy, I think we're losing that. I hope we have. Um, I know most of my clients and even the children say, "I have Dr. Oxley for my therapist,
Uh-huh.
and I was talking to my classmates, and they told me, oh, I go to Dr. Oxley too." So I don't tell that, but they're out there spreading the word. Um, but there is no shame in needing a confidant. I have a therapist. I have a therapist who is a therapist for therapists, and she's incredibly wonderful. And she makes herself available to me when I need her, which, isn't too often, but when I need her, I need her. And I wish everyone could have someone like that, Ken. You sang a song about a pastor. I think pastors are probably the most reluctant to go to therapy because they can't find anyone they trust. I do have one pastor that comes to me, and he knows it's completely
Mm.
confidential, and, um, I'm honored to be able to work with him.
Well, we're coming to that time when I'm going to have to um, bring our lovely conversation to an end. But I do want to say this: people who are watching this, if you have gained anything today, I hope that you have gotten the impression that therapy is no mystical mumbo jumbo. Therapy is no frightening kind of threatening kind of lie
Mm,
on the couch and you know um, go into some deep sort of unknown place. Therapy is conversation with somebody who cares about you, with somebody who wants to know your story, and somebody who wants to help you retell your story in a way that leaves you freer than you were before.
Mm.
Um, and I want to encourage people to pick up your book. Um, Tell us again the name of the book.
Dancing in the Desert.
And it's
It's
available
available on
everywhere.
Amazon.
Yep, it's available. And is it available in Kindle, probably in all kinds of formats?
It is. Mhm.
Um, I think it could be a real encouragement to a lot of folks, and maybe if you cannot find a therapist, if you cannot um, find a therapist who's open and available in your community, it may be that a book like this would be a resource for you. So with that, I say, Beverly Oxley, thank you a million times for being with me and with us in this hour. And we will continue to pray for Wellspring and for all the work that you're doing, hoping that you continue to raise those fountains in Franklin Springs and everywhere.
It was my pleasure to be with you, Ken. Thank you so much for the invitation.
I sit, you sit, we talk. You ask, I tell, I'm scared. All right, we'll take some time, no rush. We'll get there when we need to. I sit, you sit, some we're quiet. I talk, round and round. You listen. Perhaps you say, okay, let's get down to it now. I'm ready, I think, for the hard stuff. I trust you hear. I talk, we work. The weeks go by, I learn, you learn too. For it's mutual learning, for you and for me. I'm learning more about you, and you're learning more about me. Sometimes you talk, I listen. You tell me little bits and pieces about yourself. And week by week and month by month, we learn, I grow. I know we have at least one psychologist who is listening to this program today, and I wish for all of you who are therapists, I wish you the very, very best. I know the work is hard. I know that there are more people than you can possibly take, but I know also that your work is vital. I want to say a word about Interlude, the nonprofit that sponsors all these weekly concerts. Not only does Interlude sponsor these concerts, but as many of you know, we provide retreats for church musicians. We create for 18 to 20 church musicians an environment that is therapeutic. We bring them together to talk and to listen and to learn, to share with each other, and to be in the company of a wonderful therapist and leader, speaker, counselor, friend named Paula D'Arcy, who is our mother and sister and teacher and friend for these 3.5 days, where musicians can come, unburden themselves, learn from each other, learn from the environment. We do 2 retreats in the summer. This summer we'll do 2 in-person retreats. We'll have probably over 35, 40 musicians in our workshop this summer, and it'll be a time of learning and discovering and weeping and laughing and good food, and the retreats are free. All they have to do is get there. And Interlude sponsors these retreats, and you can be a part of that work. Oh, people, if I could tell you the letters we get from people who say, I was a part of Interlude and my life is different now. I won't ever be the same. And we get letters also from churches, from choirs who say, I don't know what you did at Interlude, but we have a new choir director. and he or she is a different person now. And so you can be a part of that good work. So feel free to become our partner, www.interluderetreats.org. There are some videos up on that website that tell you about what we do and who we are. And I'd like to also tell you about Carnegie Hall. This summer in July, on the 10th of July, my cantata called The Weaver, that I co-wrote with Burl Red several years ago, is being premiered at a choral festival taking place in Carnegie Hall. And the link to find out about that will be here on the show. You can go to True North Productions and find out about our concert. We're inviting singers, whoever you are. If you sing in a choir, if you can sight read music, we're inviting you to come be a part of that 3-day package, July 8th through 10. You get 3 nights in a New York hotel. You get meals. You get a dinner cruise after the concert. And the package is pretty reasonable. So I encourage you to give that some serious thought. And we're going to end like this. It's a song many of you know. Love, listen to your children praying. Love, send your spirit in this place. Love, listen to your children praying. Send us hope, send us power, send us grace. Spirit, come, teach us how to get down and simple. Spirit, come, teach us how to be friends of sorrow. Spirit, come, teach us to be strong but teachable. Spirit, come, teach us how to hunger and thirst for justice. For justice. Love, listen to your children pray. Love, send your spirit in this place. Love, listen to your children praying. Send us hope, send us power, send us grace. Spirit, come, teach us how to be showing mercy. Spirit, come, teach us to keep these old hearts pure. Spirit, come, teach us to be the makers of peace. Spirit, come, teach us not to be afraid to suffer when we stand up tall for justice. And we sing love, listen to your children praying. Love, send your spirit in this place. Love, listen to your children praying. Send us hope, send us power, send us grace. Have a good week. We'll see you in 1 week with Paula D'Arcy.